Okay, this stream's all about the Benjamins, so I'm going to show you a Benjamin Bach game that was all theory, the whole game. That's a good question. I don't know what happened to Boris Men. Okay, so Benjamin Bach and Benjamin Gladura are both having good Olympiads, both gaining rating points. Benjamin Bach plays board 4 for the Netherlands. He's the only bright spot on the team so far. And him and his opponent blitzed out the first 1,000 moves of this game. It was a Knight Orf. Both sides playing super instantly every move. Still theory. Engine says equal. White's obviously playing for a draw. White's a much lower rated player. So he's playing a theoretical line that leads to a forced draw. And the players just blitz this out. Both players have more time than they started with. Okay. And this position, the engine says it should be a draw. White has 3 connected past pawns, but if black, the pawns aren't dangerous now, and if black gets the rooks and bishop coordinated, white's king is toast. Yay, random user gifted a sub. Hooray. Thanks for the gifted sub. You're the best. Okay, white played b4. White still has more time than he started with. This is still his prep. Rook e8. And so this is 23 moves of prep, 22 moves of prep. And the game didn't last much longer. The engine says c4 with the idea of c5, or a4 is equal. And white made a very poor move here, b5. And you can see by the time he has an hour and 34 minutes, more time than he started with. And he thought like 13 minutes on b5, and b5 is a terrible move. That allows my bishop to get active, and it separates the pawns. And I've made this analogy many times to my students, and I've made the analogy many times on stream, and I don't think anybody understands the analogy. So it could be that I have a mental illness, or I'm smarter than everybody. Mental illness is in the running for first place. So when I see a pawn structure like this, I call it the accordion pawn structure, which is not the mental illness part. Mental illness part analogy that I make is this is like Monopoly. Monopoly, when you're building, you're not allowed to have, let's say you have 3 properties and you're putting houses on them. You're not allowed to have a disproportionate amount of houses on one and fewer on the other. So you can have 2 houses, 1 and 1, or 3 houses, 2 and 2, etc. You can't have 3 houses on 1 and 0 and 0. You're not allowed to do that. And that's what this reminds me of, that this is 0 houses and this is 3. And that's not allowed, and I don't allow it in chess for my students. Those pawns don't have any cohesion, and it's bad for white. So b5 is positionally very bad because the 3 pawns aren't related anymore, and my bishop has all the dark squares. After b5, black is obviously better. And that's like the only bad move white made in the game so far, and he's already in trouble. Yeah, you should push your pawns together. Hotels is too complicated. English prose that you're discussing, Chris, is only applicable when you're writing. When you're speaking, you can say anything you want and it's fine. Anything that you learned in school about how to write, that's for writing. I can say him and they all I want. It doesn't matter. But if I write it on a paper and you're the English teacher, then we have to question how you're the English teacher. That's another story. Now, black played the only move to give him an advantage, rook a7. That blocks the queen, and already black is threatening to win the game with rook d7 check, king c1, bishop a3 check, king b1. Then you can win by checkmating your opponent, or you can take their queen. Okay, now White's play is forced, and he correctly played c4. That's the best move. And then king c2. Rook d2 check is not the best move. And White played king b1, which is a blunder. Obviously, somebody who watches my streams always play king b1. Obviously, after king takes d2, bishop b4 check wins the queen. So White should play king b3, and the engine says it should be a draw. But he played king b1. Now his king is crushed on the back rank. So black plays bishop d6, attacking the queen. And if the queen moves away, then rook e1 is mate. So king b1 was a terrible blunder, checkmating his own king. Queen f6 is forced. King c7. And we don't really have enough checks to cause any issue. He played king c1, which stops rook e1 mate. Now he's threatening rook e1 mate. Then he stops it again. And it's forced mate. The engine already announces mate. All these moves are the right moves, including f3. Every move black made was the engine move. Now we're threatening rook e2 check and rook d1 mate. But White doesn't have a lot of checks. And a4 check is the last check. And then that's it. And here White resigned. So White played to a position that's known to be drawn and equal to here. And then he played b5, which is a mistake. And then he played king b1, which is double question mark. And lost the game without a fight. White's rating is only 2364, and his opponent's rating is 2600. So sometimes you lose when you're paired up 250 points. Are you dumb? Probably. Does rook a7 blunder a rook? No. If you play queen b6 check, then I play rook c7. Now I'm going to play bishop c5 later with tempo. Queen b6 isn't a terrible move, but c4 is better. What he did was good. It's just in this position he needed to play king b3. So he went from equal to worse in one move, then he went from slightly worse to completely lost in another move. Then he just lost. Then there's nothing he could do. The two rooks totally crushed the white king on the back rank. Truth hurts.